Jayom Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvajakacarya Asatara Satasi Simat His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. So today, this evening is, I think all of you will know, we started our new Bhagavad Gita classes here in Balaram Hall. And they switched so that we have Hindi class in here from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. and then in English from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. So thank you all for being here today. Today's verse, I think you have it. Well, the verse I was given was chapter 3, text 4. Okay, so if we like, we'll follow the procedure we do for Srimad Bhagavatam class in the morning. I'll just chant this one myself, and then if anyone would like to chant, you can chant. Naiṣkarmyaṁ anārambhān naiṣkarmyam puruṣo śnute sannyasanād siddhiṁ samadhigacchati. I'll do it again. Naiṣkarmyaṁ anārambhān naiṣkarmyam puruṣo śnute sannyasanād siddhiṁ samadhigacchati. Naiṣkarmyaṁ anārambhān naiṣkarmyam puruṣo śnute sannyasanād siddhiṁ samadhigacchati. Anārambhān naiṣkarmyam puruṣo śnute sannyasanād siddhiṁ samadhigacchati. Naiṣkarmyaṁ naiṣkarmyam puruṣo śnute sannyasanād siddhiṁ samadhigacchati. Naiṣkarmyaṁ sannyasanād siddhiṁ samadhigacchati. Naiṣkarmyaṁ Sotyate sannyasanād Any Matajis? Naiṣkarmyaṁ naiṣkarmyam puruṣo śnute sannyasanād siddhiṁ samadhigacchati. Naiṣkarmyaṁ naiṣkarmyam puruṣo śnute not karmaṇām of prescribed duties. Anārambhāt, by non-performance. Naiṣkarmyaṁ, freedom from reaction. Puruṣaḥ, a man. Aśnute, achieves. Na, nor. Cha, also. Sannyasanāt, by renunciation. Eva, simply. Siddhiṁ, success. Samadhigacchati, attains. Translation: not by merely abstaining from work can one achieve freedom from reaction, nor by renunciation alone can one attain perfection. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. The renounced order of life can be accepted when one has been purified by the discharge of the prescribed form of duties, which are laid down just to purify the hearts of materialistic men. Without purification, one cannot attain success by abruptly adopting the fourth order of life, sannyas. According to the empirical philosophers, simply by adopting sannyas, or by retiring from fruitive activities, one at once becomes as good as Narayan. But Lord Kṛṣṇa does not approve this principle. Without purification of the heart, sannyas is simply a disturbance to the social order. On the other hand, if someone takes to the transcendental service of the Lord, even without discharging his prescribed duties, whatever he may be able to advance in the cause is accepted by the Lord, buddhi-yoga. Sv-alpam apyasya damasya trayate mahato bayat. Even a slight performance of such a principle enables one to overcome great difficulties. Can repeat? Not by merely abstaining from work can one achieve freedom from reaction, nor by renunciation alone can one attain perfection. Thank you. Amagyanatimirandasya gnanjana salakaya chakshulunmilitam jena tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Vedab Putale Svayavarbhakadamayam Dadati Svapatandikam Panchakopa Tirubhischa Kripasindubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Again, thank you all for being here this evening. Also, Sunday is going to become, I guess it already is becoming, it's Prabhupada Katha will be every Sunday. So both the Hindi and English classes on Sunday will be different devotees speaking about Srila Prabhupada. And of course, this evening, if you know me, I'll be talking about Srila Prabhupada mostly, or all the time. I actually was given this verse the other day, told that I was giving class this evening, and I had to laugh since, of course, it was about sannyas. But then I have a lot of experience with sannyasis. Never been a sannyasa, as everyone here is aware of. But from the very time I came into the society in 1971, somehow or other I very much been surrounded by swamis, sannyasis, from the very beginning, Kirtanananda Maharaj. And then after leaving New Vrindavan, of course, I traveled with Srila Prabhupada. And we think of Srila Prabhupada, of course, I think of many different things, but sometimes we don't think of one of those things as him being a very strict sannyasi. And Srila Prabhupada was a very strict sannyasi. It wasn't just Srila Prabhupada to us, the master. Everyone sits at his feet. That's above all of these designations. But at the same time, in Prabhupada, we know he followed the sannyasa ashram very closely from the time he came to America. That's what he said when some of the people had said to him, when you go to the West, you're going to have to learn how to eat with fork and knife, right? Prabhupada said, I'm not going to learn anything from them. I'm going to teach them. I, as a young man and a young boy, man in America, I really didn't understand the depth of that analogy of fork and knife until I lived in England for 8 years. 8 years, that was from 2003 to 2010. I had the opportunity to understand some of the things Prabhupada said, some of the jokes he used, because of his understanding of the British. And as I said, when I went to England, they were very, very serious about these two items. I never learned that in America. You know, I was raised eating pasta, you know, pizza and pasta. You know, we would just twirl the spaghetti up on the fork and put it in. Knives were not required. But they were very serious. And I'm not even sure, you know, the knife in the right hand, the fork in the left hand. And so delicately, sometimes I would see them through windows walking and cutting their meat, their flesh, but with such culture, such cultured people. So Prabhupada used that. It was a real dig at them. This was their big advancement, how to kill the animal and then cut very nicely, very properly, everything. Knowing where the knife goes, the fork goes, your napkin goes, this thing goes, that thing goes. You know that one saying, they asked Mahatma Gandhi what he thought about Western civilization. And he said, yes, it would be very nice if they had it. You know, if they became civilized. He could understand they were not civilized just by using fork and knife. But Prabhupada went to America as a sannyasi, a swami. His dhoti, sannyas dhoti, kurta, played cartels, eventually got the mridanga. He taught everyone how to eat rice, chapatis, dal, and sabji. He didn't adopt anything from Western culture. I remember as his servant in Los Angeles. Los Angeles is a very wonderful place, very special place in the West. That's why it's very popular, very famous, just like you have Bollywood here in India, you know, Mumbai area, very nice area. And in Los Angeles, they have Hollywood, very nice area. It's always like springtime, pleasant weather like that. So it was a very nice place. When Prabhupada went there, of course, same thing. Every day I was making for him very simple lunch, rice, everyday rice in the katuri, covered one, covered katuri. He ate the rice like any proper person. At the end of the meal, first he ate his chapatis, sabji, mixing piece of chapati, back and forth, back and forth. Then slowly he would put a little dal in. Then he would put some rice. Then he started the mixing, you know. Never fork and knife. Wasn't required. Sitting on the floor. He wasn't attracted He had no attraction to Western society, how they did things. Everywhere I went, you see his rooms here at Radha Damodar Temple. He was very happy. Small room. You know, now you go to the cities, you have garage for your car, bigger than the room Prabhupada stayed in. Now you have to put your car, your chariots in there. And Prabhupada took that design, that architectural design of his room at Radha Damodar Temple. Everywhere he went, he duplicated it. A desk just like this on the floor. Him sitting on a nice big cushion, just like this cushion on the floor. These beside him, but right on the floor with a lamp. That was his lighting in the room. Not that there was lights, wall lights, ceiling lights. No, he had one light there that he used for translating. We talk of renunciation. This was real renunciation that Prabhupada had. And even being a sannyasi, as it's described here, just because you renounce doesn't mean you're going to attain anything. One has to take to devotional service. This is the lesson that Arjuna's going to get. He couldn't understand fighting. I told that story the other day. I had been with Prabhupada for 2 years. And somehow in the midst of it, I was married and I had a child. My child was 4 months old. I was traveling with Srila Prabhupada. My wife and my child, they were living in Hawaii in the care of the temple. Sannyas. Huh? Prabhupada wanted all of his disciples to act as sannyasis. It didn't matter. You were wearing a little saffron, half a dhoti, like a sannyasi, kurta. No. If you were a brahmachari, if you were a grahasta, he expected the same of everyone. He wanted full renunciation from all of his disciples. And I was one of them. In those days, we say, what do we talk about this morning? Who remembers the verse this morning? Chaitanya Charitamrita in English class. What was the word? One word. Tapa. Tapasya. Without tapasya, you don't get anywhere in spiritual life. If easy. Prabhupada said it. Spiritual life does not go with easy-going life. Even Prabhupada would use that term. Simple living, high thinking. But that phrase, simple living, it can sound like it's simple. But it doesn't mean easy. Simple living. You want to see simple living, you just ride up the road here, 10 minutes up the road. You go past wholesome food, come to the fork, you take a right, keep going. Go through little village, next little village, a little goshala, man with half a dozen cows, growing some vegetables. Children, everybody's working. That's simple living. The other day I went to buy my watermelons. Very nice watermelon season. Very sweet they are. So I went out there by the Sabji Mandi. But one man, that's all he had, watermelons. But he had his 2 little children there. He wasn't there. He had like a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old son. They were selling the watermelons. Huh? This is understood here in India, what it means to do your prescribed duties. And by doing that, what's it say? One becomes purified. Again, like this morning, the one devotee said, what happens if someone doesn't hear, doesn't listen? What do? I said, Prabhupada said, give them a lot of prasadam. Purify them. That's what he did when he came. to the US as a sannyasi, disciple of his spiritual master. He was sannyasi. He didn't expect everyone to follow what he was doing. They required purification. Lots of purification. He would sit Tompkins Square Park, chant for 3 hours straight. He never changed the melody, never changed the tempo, just chanted Hare Krishna purely. And then he began giving them prasadam. Not store-bought items. Go in the store, buy a loaf of bread. It's just things go on. Sour cream, this cheese, that cheese, yogurts. Yeah. That's all changing, but America was the land of plenty in those days. Now not so plenty. But no, none of that. Bought milk, make yogurt. Can see in his ledger what it meant to be a sannyasi. Every item he purchased is recorded in that diary. 1965. You'll see 5 cents. That's like us saying here, 5 cents is like saying 2 rupees. These beggars, they won't even accept 2 rupees from you. You can't give them 2 rupees. So 5 cents, Prabhupada was writing it down. Purchase rice or purchase salt, 5 cents. Purchase cumin, 12 cents. Everything he did. This is renunciation. Prabhupada was renounced. I said in Los Angeles, over the course of time, I developed some friends. I was from the East Coast, New York City area. So they were New Yorkers. We identified. That's automatic, just like you. Person comes from the area you come from. You come from this spot, that spot. You feel a natural camaraderie. Anyway, they said, what can I make for Prabhupada? I had one friend, lady friend, she was devotee. She was Italian descent, as I was. All my grandparents were from Italy. All her grandparents were from Italy. All her parents were from the US. So she said, what can I make for Prabhupada? I said, you can make them eggplant parmesan. Eggplant parmesan. It's very, as it sounds, an Italian dish, but very nice. Deep fried eggplant, kind of like a pakora. Eggplant pakora, deep fried. Lots of tomato sauce. Lots of cheese. So, of course, I'm thinking, make it for Prabhupada, but Srutakirti can have some of the remnants. I was with Prabhupada. I always ate Prabhupada's remnants. So I would arrange. I made him rice, chapatis, dal, fried eggplant, cauliflower potatoes, potato and eggplant. I made these subjects day after day, and he never complained. Every day he ate like that. But I said, make eggplant parmesan. Prabhupada stuck his hand in there. No interest. One time I had to make Prabhupada blueberry pancakes, Los Angeles, for breakfast. So what can I make? I said, I can make blueberry pancakes. I wasn't thinking about Prabhupada. I wasn't renounced. I was thinking of me. Prabhupada will take, and then I take remnants, pancakes and maple syrup. Again, Prabhupada, what is this? What is this? Oh, that's pancakes, Prabhupada. No, not interested. But he had to perform marriage ceremonies. You see him in 1966. A sannyasi. Impossible. He's performing marriage ceremony for his disciples in 1966. He said, who else is going to do it? He had to do everything. He even had to tell them how to live as a grahasta. And he did. But then you'll see a few years later, people are writing them. Grahastas, Grahasta couples, managing temples. Prabhupada's temples were being managed by men and women, Grahasta couples. We know the famous story, London. 3 couples, Prabhupada said. He said, my godbrothers couldn't do anything there. He said, these Grahastas have conquered George Harrison, London. They made their place there. He said they're more than sannyasis because they're engaged fully in devotional service. Sometimes in the 70s, some of the men, they were grahastas, but already they're becoming very itchy. Westerners have we have an itchy complex. We get itchy. So Prabhupada called it change disease. Always wanting to change. Huh? I know if I go back to that spot where I bought watermelons last week, the same boys will be there. But they won't be 5 and 8. They'll be 25 and 28. And they'll still be doing their prescribed duty. That's very nice. They're here in Vrindavan. But even that prescribed duty can't bring you back to Godhead. I was Prabhupada's servant, 4-year-old son. I had never seen him because I traveled with Prabhupada. And we were back in the USA, so I thought I can work my way to Hawaii, which was far, far on the west. And Prabhupada went into his room in Miami, a nice little cottage. Paintings like this, just like this size. You see the picture of Prabhupada there. That's at Bhaktivedanta Manor on the lawn. The garden, they would say in England. In the US, they have lawns, yards. England, garden. So Prabhupada, we walked into the room and I have his suitcases on me. I'm traveling with Prabhupada. We're all renunciates. We're all performing austerities. And we're all happy. Not that we sometimes didn't want this, didn't want that, had needs. Sense gratification was always banging on the head. But still there was a happiness because we were performing austerities. And Prabhupada walked into the room. And I'm right behind him. Just a little room, living room. And he saw the painting. He said, I like this painting very much. I made a big mistake. The painting was Krishna and Arjuna. It was just described here a few verses ago. It was the painting Arjuna. It's like this. You all know that look. If you have children, you know that look. What did you do now? You know? But Arjuna's thinking, what does he want me to do? He wants me to kill my relatives, my friends. He's telling me I'm supposed to kill them. And Prabhupada said, I like that painting very much. Because Krishna's just standing there looking at him. He said with a smile. He said, you'll never see a picture of Krishna. Well, here we have a lot of Balaram, Krishna also. You'll never see a picture of Krishna and Balaram with... Never hear about the, you say in English, mopey. Oh, jeez. Oh, just always depressed. You don't see any looking depression. Krishna looked depressed. No, he's always smiling. Arjuna, on the other hand, he was upset. He's in a lot of anxiety. So Prabhupada said, I like this painting very much. And I looked at Prabhupada and I said, why? He was waiting for me to ask that question. Why? And then he looked at me. He knew I wanted to leave him, to go back with my family. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. It was obvious. We can say obvious because Prabhupada, he knew everything Krishna wanted him to know, right? But on the other hand, it was probably very obvious on the simplest levels that I was agitated, wasn't peaceful, wanted to change. It's one of the reasons I like traveling around with Prabhupada, because it was always moving. I'd be in a place 4 or 5 days, and when is Prabhupada leaving? We can go somewhere else. Because I was thinking if I went somewhere else, it would solve all my problems, curdle all these desires that were always attacking me. Prabhupada looked at me. He said, just see. He said, if Krishna wants, you have to kill your family members. What to speak of leaving them? Now he's talking about me. He didn't say that. Prabhupada never directly attacked me. He attacked me. He didn't attack me. He tried to save me. But when you don't want to be saved, that's attack. He said, what to speak of leaving your family? That's what all of us were doing. Pradyumna had a wife, a child. Shyamasundar had a wife and a child. Later on, Nitai came, had a wife. So many. We were grahastas. We were married. And we're traveling with Prabhupada. The foremost of all sannyasis. The foremost renounced person. And he's keeping us just like we were no different than anyone else. Didn't care. Brahmachari, sannyasi, man, woman, married, unmarried. Just do your duty. And our duty was assisting him. And his duty was following his spiritual master's orders, which brought him to America. And he never stopped preaching from the time he went there. And he engaged us in assisting him. And now he's looking at me and saying, if Krishna wants, you have to kill your family members. What to speak of leaving them? Huh? Of course, that's not required. You don't get, sometimes you get some fanatic people, they think, well, maybe they're all problems anyway. You have a marriage problem, you think, well, Prabhupada said, if Krishna wants. Well, Krishna doesn't want, so that you can leave that part behind. But he does expect us to do the best we can. Prabhupada wanted me to stay with him. So then that happened the one day. I was so dull-headed. I never realized that Prabhupada would preach to me. That Prabhupada would tell me what to do, what not to do. Because he did it in the third person all the time. He never said it to me. He would just say things so nonchalantly, so simply. I was a brahmachari. I had been with him for a year. Now, of course, I said, no, 6 months later I'm going to be married. I didn't know what was coming. Prabhupada could see. Just by the way you do things, you can see what lies ahead by experience. Prabhupada could see, this boy, he's losing it. So now we're in Atlanta, 3 days later, and I have my plans solidified. I'm going to leave and be with my family, despite what Prabhupada said, because I didn't realize he was telling me, you should just stay with me and do your service. That's how you'll become purified. If I let you go, it's all going to spoil. But he didn't say that to me. He just gave me a direction, just like you reading his books. You'll think, well, this doesn't apply to me. No, it does. Everything applies to me. Everything applies to us. What does it mean? Prabhupada says, all my answers, all the answers are in my books. It means just that. All of your answers to your questions, what you should do, what you shouldn't do, why you should do it, everything is there. So a couple days later, I'm massaging Prabhupada's back. Obviously, I'm sitting He's sitting on the floor cross-legged in a gamcha on a little mat that cost 20 rupees. Maybe at that time it cost 7 rupees out of 1973. Simple. Prabhupada was simple. Didn't waste Krishna's Lakshmi. We always knew that. Not 1 rupee wasted. I'm massaging him. And I told the secretary, he was a sannyasi at the time. He was a sannyasi traveling with Prabhupada. I told him, I said, I made an arrangement with the God brother. He's ready to come and be Prabhupada's servant again. He had done it for more than a year before me, so he knew what he was doing. So I was being thoughtful. I wasn't abandoning him. I was providing him with someone else. But me, I wanted to go see my family. So I'm massaging him. And as I'm giving him massage, the secretary comes in at that time with me right there with Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, Srutakirti wants to go and be with his family. I was so ashamed of myself. I wanted him to do it when I wasn't there, not right in front of me, so I could be so embarrassed at how fallen I was. He did it right in front of me, and I'm looking at him. What are you doing? Saying that to Prabhupada here. And he said, he's made an arrangement. The previous servant can come. He'll go to India with you. Srutakirti will go back, spend time with his family. When you come back to the West, then Srutakirti will be your servant again. This was a plan me and this other devotee boy had made. And I'm massaging Prabhupada. He's telling Prabhupada the plan. And he says, Prabhupada, what do you think? I'm massaging Prabhupada, and my mind's just... And Prabhupada doesn't say anything. And I'm still massaging. Prabhupada's waiting for me. Just like Krishna's waiting for Arjuna to become intelligent, to listen, to understand. But this person doesn't understand, doesn't listen. He only knows he's tired, he's been sick in India, wants to see, he's attached to his wife and child he hasn't seen yet, and he wants to be with them. But I didn't have the courage to even make an arrangement with Prabhupada. I tried to go around, like I tried to go this way. When my guru was right in front of me to solve all my problems if I just asked him. And then it was quiet. And then finally I'm massaging and the secretary says, well, Srutakirti, he should remain. And Prabhupada said, that's okay. Which meant yes. But I was the one that was supposed to say that. Prabhupada, I'll stay with you. I'm your servant. That's my service. I'll never leave. This is devotee. And I've never been a devotee. Just somehow or other, it's a good fortune. And I stayed for some more months. Until again, I just couldn't carry on. That's what happens when you become unregulated. Traveling was very difficult. Every day, every couple of days, you're somewhere else. One day, all new people, all new everything. Only constant was Prabhupada. What more could anyone want, huh? But it just shows the nature. In 10 years, 11 years, I was one of over a dozen servants. Dozen secretaries. Why? Because we were always having to do something else. Being with a pure devotee is not such an easy thing unless you're pure or you become purified. You know the analogy. You put the iron rod in the fire. Keep it in the fire. What happens? It becomes fire, red hot fire. Whatever you touch, immediately you put it to this book, boom, fire. But I would say, if you don't take advantage of what you're being given, you get burnt. If you don't take that tapa, that austerity that's being offered to you, then you're going to, one way or another, you're going to fall away. You have to stay always in that fire. Prabhupada gave us this program, morning program, evening program, which included this class, Bhagavad Gita in the evening. We called the ISKCON sandwich, the bread. You know what a sandwich is. So bread on the bottom was the morning program. And on the top was the evening program. And in between was what you did all day long. That was the juice, the fuel, your service. It's all service. But then there's a service to help Prabhupada's mission. So that's what is being prescribed here again and again and again. And as living entities, what are we? Well, but I have this obligation. I have this obligation. Here in India, you hear this all the time. And we always have. Well, I've got to provide for my parents. I've got to work jobs, send money back to them. See, we had the ability to leave, to understand these so-called prescribed duties. Our duty was to surrender to Prabhupada. That was our prescribed duty. And so many thousands, they worked very hard. And like in a battle, Prabhupada said there were many casualties. Sannyasi. Prabhupada gave sannyas. Like he said in the war, when you have a war, if you don't have any colonels, he said every fourth person you give them, your colonel. And in that way you carry on. And Prabhupada said that's what he did. He said they weren't qualified, so many as sannyasi, but he gave them that. And when he did, he empowered them. It might have been for 6 months, 6 years, 60 years, some of them. But by giving them that, Prabhupada empowered them. And they did amazing preaching. You can read history in those days. Traveling around the world by themselves, opening up temples, going from one place to another with no money. Tapasya. And because of that, they're all very glorious personalities. These people came to Srila Prabhupada early on. They gave themselves as long as they could. Some from beginning to end. Some were casualties on the road. Prabhupada said that's okay. Benefit is there. Always there. And we see that as well. We have a little time left. See? We're doing the 6 to 7 because someone said that the English speakers don't stop in time. I can't imagine that. I guess the Hindi speakers, they're much more, what's the word? Yes, cultured. They stop on time. But I don't see anyone stop on time. As I said, devotees, we're trained to never stop talking by Srila Prabhupada. That's what he trained us to do. Just preach, 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 preach. From morning till evening. That's how he trained us up. So anyway, does anyone have a question or comment? Yes, Prabhu.
On that last point, which you said, Prabhupada taught us never to stop. Yes, that's true. But I saw that Prabhupada's, most of his classes are just 45 minutes long. After which the question and answers carry on for a long time. But his classes would always be 35 to 45 minutes.
It depends on the bigness of the person sometimes. Some go on very long time, yes. You know, Prabhupada here in Vrindavan, Prabhupada twice told me, class should be half an hour. We can go longer, of course, and Prabhupada did, but if you see his classes, generally vast majority are within a half hour, 35 minutes of speaking, once you started speaking. And we can see sometimes over the course of an hour or half an hour, you can lose. I saw Lokanath Swami, he has his style when he sees someone sleeping. Hits this, hits that. He's not just playing, he's seeing. I see you all. In the evening time, no one's nodding out except for that young. But in the morning, it's not like that. People this way, that way. So he has his way. Hari, hari. Have to keep everyone's attention. This is our business. This is what we're trying to learn. How to keep attention on Krishna. Always our attention focused on Krishna. Nothing else. This is the easiest place in the whole world. If you can't concentrate on Krishna in Vrindavan, I don't know what you can do. Everywhere you go is Krishna. Everywhere. Everywhere tilak. Everywhere japa, mala. Prabhupada called it japa. He called it bidai. Malika. Malika? No? Malika, he called the bead bag sometimes. I'll tell you one last story. We have a few minutes left. We were in Switzerland, Zurich, on the way to St. Moritz. At the time it was the biggest, most expensive resort in the world, ski resort. Anyway, Prabhupada stayed in Zurich in this hotel overnight. And we were in the room, the servants, we were in the room next to him. So you know you have those doors between the rooms. Sometimes you have the adjoining door. So I would go in, give Prabhupada massage, go back, have to arrange for his prasadam. So one afternoon, I'm in the servants' quarters. I can't find my bead bag. And then I go into Prabhupada's room, the hotel room. And Prabhupada's sitting in the chair. And he's chanting japa on my beads, in my bead bag, which was a Maha Prasadam bead bag from Prabhupada. And he's sitting there and chanting, and I thought, well, that's very good. So then I left the room, and I came back after 20 minutes, and Prabhupada's still chanting on those beads in the bead bag, my bead bag. Then finally he put it down, and then I, of course, reclaimed it. And no, I have neither those beads or the bead bag or dozens of other things that Prabhupada gave me because I was foolishly generous and gave everything away to the devotees. Wasn't foolish, but I was very generous and never kept anything. Yes. So, any other questions?
Hare Krishna.
Karbajan.
Hare Krishna. Prabhu, as we see, Prabhupada used to chant Jai Radha Madhava. After finishing Jai Radha Madhava, he used to say thank you very much. And further, he never used to say anything. Now we see we add so many things.
Yeah, things are applause. We have applause signs and everybody. No, at the end of class, and seldom was there questions. Only in Mexico, funnily enough, Mexico and South America, where his classes had to be translated by Hridayananda Maharaj at the time. Then at the end he would say, any questions? And Australia also, famously, he would give them the opportunity to ask questions. That's what I was saying this morning. They could be very arrogant sometimes. Or they would ask Prabhupada. They didn't ask questions, they would just make their comments. So Prabhupada said they need a lot of prasadam. That's also tapasya. Also austerity of the tongue. Prabhupada talks at one time about the prostitute, the tongue, right? He talks about being the prostitute, the tongue. What does it mean? Going out and eating. He said prostitution of the tongue. You're not satisfied. But he said prasadam in the temple should be so good, no one even thinks of going outside. So it works both ways. Prasadam here is very tasty. Okay. Uh-huh. Good questions, very good. At that time in Los Angeles, where she was, we had many, many apartments, many flats. We had 6 buildings. Each building had maybe 20 apartments in it, so around 100 apartments. So it was a big community, a lot of book distribution, prasadam distribution. So just like they do here, people do service and the temple gives them maintenance. So that was going on. I was being maintained by the temple in Los Angeles. My wife and child were being maintained there as I was traveling with Srila Prabhupada. And the other question was? The one you can remember Krishna in. That's different for everyone. There's no best. The best is the one that suits you, not artificially. This whole verse is about artificially jumping in as sannyasi, think I'm just going to renounce everything. When you haven't come to the platform of being able to control your senses, not even have these desires. As I said, I was around our ISKCON sannyasis all of the time. The GBCs, the temple presidents, the sannyasis. It was always like that somehow. And of course, I was never in that group, but I was around them, serving that group. But, and even then, sannyasis fell down, became grahasta. Once one was married, child, came before Prabhupada. He said, now you're a grahasta. He said, like Srutakirti. He said, just go on with your service. The ashram is important to help us, gives us strength. That's why brahmacharya ashram is there, so even you get married, you can be proper householder, not nonsense householder. Be proper. The Prabhupada wanted us to be proper. So we're out of time. I have to end on time. We have artiks happening now, right? And so thank you all every evening. Please come. We want this room to become full over time. And every Sunday will be Prabhupada Katha. Okay, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.